The survival of Natascha Kampusch. Taken at 10 years old, escapes after 8 years. On the morning of March 2, 1998, a 10-year-old girl left her home in Vienna, Austria, and began the familiar walk to school. Her name was Natascha Kampusch. She carried her backpack. She followed the same route she always had. It was an ordinary school morning. She never arrived. For the next 8 years, Natascha Kampusch would live hidden from the world. Not in a distant war zone, not in an abandoned forest, but beneath an ordinary suburban home. This is not just a story of abduction. It is a story of psychological captivity, survival, escape, and the deep misunderstanding that followed. Natascha Kampusch was an intelligent, thoughtful child. She loved learning. She enjoyed books. She was introspective and observant. Her home life was complex. She later described emotional distance and strict discipline, but she was not a runaway. She had plans. She had routines. On that March morning, she walked alone, as many children did. That was all it took. As Natascha walked toward school, a white van pulled alongside her. The driver was Wolfgang Pricklepil, a 36-year-old telecommunications technician. He forced her into the vehicle. The act was swift, public, and over in seconds. Witnesses later reported seeing a van, but details were unclear. Police launched a search, but no trace of Natascha was found. Within hours, she had vanished completely. Pricklepil took Natascha to his home. Beneath it, hidden behind a reinforced steel door, was a small underground cellar, a space he had secretly constructed. This would become her world. The room was windowless, soundproofed, sealed. At first, Natascha was kept in near total isolation. Light was controlled. Food was rationed. Silence was enforced. Pricklepil used fear and unpredictability to establish dominance. Escape was made to feel impossible. What followed was not only physical confinement, but psychological imprisonment. Pricklepil alternated cruelty with moments of calm, punishment with reward, threats with dependency. This pattern is known as coercive control, a method designed not just to restrain the body, but to reshape the mind. Natascha learned that. Resistance increased punishment. Compliance reduced harm. Survival depended on adaptation. Over time, her world narrowed to one person. This was not consent. It was conditioning. Days blurred into weeks. Weeks into months. Months into years. Without daylight or routine, time lost its meaning. Natascha survived by creating a structure where none existed. She counted days. She memorized details. She rehearsed language, stories, and thoughts, afraid that losing them would mean losing herself. This internal resistance would become her lifeline. As years passed, Pricklepil allowed Natascha limited access to the house above. She cleaned. She cooked. She was still controlled, but the environment expanded. With this came risk, but also opportunity. She observed. She listened. She learned patterns. She did not forget who she was. Many later asked a painful question. Why didn't she escape sooner? The answer lies in understanding captivity. Natascha was a child taken at 10, isolated for years, threatened repeatedly, psychologically conditioned. Escape is not a single moment of courage. It is a calculation shaped by fear, consequence, and survival. Attempting escape at the wrong time could mean death. Waiting was not a weakness. It was a strategy. On August 23, 2006, 8 years after her abduction, an opportunity appeared. Pricklepil stepped away briefly while Natascha was working in the garden. For the first time, she was unsupervised. She did not hesitate. She ran. She left the property. She reached a neighbor's yard. She asked for help. Police were called. Natascha Kampusch was free. Within hours, the world was taken by surprise. Within days, the media descended and went absolutely crazy. Within minutes, speculation began. Wolfgang Pricklepil took his own life shortly after her escape, leaving many questions unanswered. Natascha was suddenly not just a survivor, but a public figure. And the public struggled to understand her as she sympathized with her captor. Instead of compassion, Natascha faced suspicion. People questioned her behavior, her calmness, her refusal to simplify her story. Some misinterpreted trauma responses as sympathy for her captor. Others criticized her for grieving his death, not understanding that grief does not equal forgiveness. Psychologists explained, trauma bonds are not affection. They are survival mechanisms. But the narrative had already taken shape. Natascha was judged for not behaving the way people expected a victim to behave. Natascha chose to speak for herself. She wrote. She gave interviews. She clarified misconceptions. She refused to let others define her experience. She emphasized. She never consented. She never stopped wanting freedom. Survival required psychological adaptation. Her honesty unsettled some, but it empowered others. Freedom brought new challenges. Learning autonomy. Rebuilding trust, navigating a world that had moved on without her. Natascha worked with therapists. She pursued education. She reclaimed independence step by step. Healing was not linear, but it was deliberate. The greatest injustice Natascha faced after her escape was misunderstanding. People wanted a simple narrative, evil villain, helpless victim, clear emotions. But trauma is complex. Survival rewires behavior. Natascha did not owe anyone pain on display. She owed herself the truth. The Kampusch case reshaped discussions around coercive control, trauma bonding, victim behavior, media responsibility. It forced experts and the public alike to confront uncomfortable truths about how captivity affects the mind. Natascha Kampusch survived 8 years of captivity, not by surrendering, but by adapting. Her survival did not look dramatic. It looked quiet, calculated, enduring. And when she escaped, she faced a second battle, not against a captor, but against public misunderstanding. Her story reminds us, survival does not come with a script. Trauma does not demand explanation, and resilience does not need approval. This was the survival of Natascha Kampusch, a story of trauma, a story of endurance, and a reminder that survival is deeply personal. If you want more true crime stories told with care, depth, and understanding, subscribe to Mystery Grid. Because every story is a puzzle, and some puzzles demand empathy, not judgment.